Emma woke up to the soft gray light that always filled her small Oregon home in the early morning, and for a moment she lay still, listening to the quiet rhythm of the house, thinking of how different life felt now compared to a few years ago when everything was louder, fuller, and warmer. Back then she used to wake to her husband humming in the kitchen and her son laughing at the breakfast table. But now the house held a different kind of silence, one that felt both peaceful and heavy, like a blanket that warmed her but also reminded her of everything she had lost. She pushed herself out of bed, brushed her hair into a loose bun, and made her way to the kitchen, trying to shake off the feeling that something inside her had been settling into sadness for too long. The kettle hissed on the stove, the smell of coffee filled the air, and outside the rain dripped steadily from the pine trees, creating a soft rhythm that matched her thoughts. She had gotten used to living life quietly, keeping her mind busy with chores and routines so she wouldn't think too much about the ache that came from being left behind, because even though she rarely said it out loud, she still felt the sting of her husband leaving 2 years ago, walking out without a real explanation, leaving a note that said he needed something different. A phrase so vague it felt almost cruel, and yet she had survived, or at least she told herself she had. As she moved around the kitchen, she heard the familiar sound of Noah's footsteps coming down the hall, slow and uneven, typical of a 14-year-old boy who stayed up too late doing homework and playing games. He walked in, hair messy, hoodie half-zipped, his eyes still sleepy but warm, and Emma felt that familiar rush of love, the kind that made all her struggles worth it. Noah was her reason for getting up each day, her anchor, her reminder that life still had meaning, even when it felt quiet and uncertain. He looked at her, not with the indifference most teens showed their parents, but with a kind of softness that always surprised her, because Noah had grown into a boy who felt deeply, who noticed things she tried to hide. She put a plate of toast and eggs in front of him, trying to give the morning its usual routine, but Noah didn't pick up his fork right away. Instead he just watched her for a moment, his expression thoughtful, almost worried, as if something inside him had been building for a while. "You look tired again," he said quietly, and Emma paused, her hand hesitating above the counter, because she wasn't expecting him to notice so quickly or say it so directly. She forced a smile, the practiced kind she had used many times before. "Just a long week," she replied, but Noah simply shook his head, and the look in his eyes made her feel suddenly exposed, like he could see every emotion she tried to hide behind calm smiles. He took a slow breath before speaking again. "You don't laugh like you used to," he whispered, and those words cut straight to a part of her heart she didn't touch often, a place where she stored memories of happier days, family trips, warm dinners, and all the things that made her marriage feel real before it fell apart. Emma wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she was fine, that she was just tired and overthinking things, but Noah's voice carried a truth she couldn't deny, so she simply looked down at the counter and tried to gather herself. She had been trying so hard to make their home feel normal, to keep things steady for Noah, cooking, cleaning, making sure he had what he needed, telling herself she had moved on. But deep down she knew she had been doing everything except letting herself heal, because healing meant facing the loneliness that crept into her chest each night, and she wasn't sure she was strong enough for that yet. As the rain continued tapping softly on the windows, Noah cleared his throat again, as if gathering courage for something. "Mom, can we talk about something?" he asked, and his tone held a seriousness that pulled her attention instantly. Emma turned to him, feeling a small knot form in her stomach. "Of course," she said, but Noah hesitated, shifting his weight, looking at the floor, then at her again, his expression uncertain but determined. "I have an idea," he said slowly, "and I think it might make you happy." Emma blinked, confused, feeling her heart speed up just a little, because it wasn't often that Noah spoke like this, so careful and emotional at the same time. She tried to lighten the moment with a small laugh, but it came out thin. "Honey, you don't have to worry about me," she said, but Noah shook his head again, stronger this time. "I do worry," he replied. "I see you trying to be okay all the time, but you're not." She felt a sting behind her eyes because he wasn't wrong, not even a little. "Mom," he continued softly, "you deserve to smile again." The words hung in the air, delicate and heavy at once, and Emma felt the breath catch in her chest, because she wasn't used to someone caring about her feelings so openly. She was the caretaker, the steady one, the person who made sure everything stayed together. But Noah's voice made her feel like maybe she didn't have to pretend anymore. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I mean, I want you to be happy," he said. "Not just for me but for you." Emma reached for a dish towel, trying to keep her hands busy, but Noah stepped closer, eyes serious. I want you to start living again, he said, and Emma felt the world slow down for a moment, because she hadn't expected him to say something so deep, so adult. She opened her mouth to speak, to tell him she didn't know how to do that she wasn't ready. That part of her heart still felt bruised. But Noah continued before she could say anything. I know Dad hurt you, he said quietly. I know you don't talk about it, but I see it. Emma squeezed her eyes shut for a second, fighting the rush of emotion his words brought. You don't have to stay stuck because of him, Noah added. He made his choice, but you still have a life to live. Emma felt like the air in the room had changed, as if her son had opened a window she didn't even know was closed, letting something warm and new drift inside. But she didn't know what to do with it yet. And, Noah continued, his cheeks turning slightly red, I think there's someone who likes you. Emma's eyes snapped open, her pulse jumping. What? She breathed. Noah bit his lip, looked away, then looked back at her. Coach Liam, he said softly, and Emma felt a warm shock ripple through her chest, because Liam Turner had always been kind to her, but she never allowed herself to think beyond polite greetings and occasional smiles. He was steady, calm, thoughtful, the kind of person who made conversations feel easy, the kind who carried a quiet warmth that she sometimes noticed when she shouldn't. He asked about you, Noah added. He asked why you don't come to the games anymore, and he sounded like he really cared. Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. Noah, you're reading too much into it, she said, though the uncertainty in her voice betrayed her. No, I'm not. He insisted gently. He looks at you like he really sees you. Emma's heart beat faster, not with fear but with something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope, faint and fragile. I'm not saying you have to do anything today, Noah continued, his voice calmer now. But maybe someday you could talk to him or let him talk to you. Emma swallowed hard, her mind spinning with emotions she hadn't expected to feel on a quiet Saturday morning. And then, just as she opened her mouth to respond, a sharp sound cut through the house. The doorbell rang once, loud enough to echo through the hallway. Emma and Noah froze, staring at each other, their breaths held in the same moment of shock. Mom, Noah whispered, eyes widening. I think that's him. And with those words, everything inside Emma shifted, as if the quiet morning she thought she understood suddenly became the beginning of something she never expected. Emma felt her heart thudding so loudly she thought Noah could hear it, because the moment he said Liam's name, everything inside her turned warm and anxious at the same time. She had spent 2 years building walls around her heart, telling herself there was no space for romance, no room for hope, no reason to look at another man when she was still carrying the exhaustion and fear from the marriage that had fallen apart. But hearing Liam's name spoken out loud like that, spoken by her own son, made all the feelings she had tried to bury rise to the surface before she could stop them. Noah's voice stayed soft but steady. Mom, you don't have to be scared, he said, and Emma wanted to tell him she wasn't scared, that she was simply surprised. But the truth was more complicated. She was scared, scared of trying again, scared of trusting, scared of getting hurt, scared of letting someone in only to watch them walk away like her husband did. Yet something in Noah's face told her he wanted more than just her honesty. He wanted her to believe she deserved another chance at happiness. She leaned against the counter, trying to swallow the dryness in her throat. Noah, you shouldn't worry about things like this, she said, but he stepped closer, refusing to let the moment slip away. I'm not a little kid anymore, Mom, I see things, he replied. I see the way you avoid going out, the way you pretend you're fine, the way you look at other families sometimes, like you're remembering something you miss. And even though his voice stayed gentle, each word hit her like a quiet truth she could no longer deny. Emma looked down at her hands, noticing the faint tremor in her fingers, because she knew she had spent so much time staying strong that she had stopped letting herself feel anything else. She opened her mouth to respond, but Noah spoke again, his tone even more careful. Coach Liam is a good man, he said. He's been there for me when I needed help. He listens, he cares. And I think he cares about you too, more than just a little. And though the words weren't dramatic, they carried a weight that made Emma's breath quicken, because deep down she had sensed something from Liam too. The way he paused before walking away, the lingering warmth in his smile, the way he asked about her day as if he truly wanted to know. The way his eyes softened when she talked about Noah, but she had told herself she was imagining it, that it was nothing more than politeness because believing anything more felt dangerous. Noah, she whispered, shaking her head. I don't know about this. But Noah gently touched her arm. a simple gesture full of more love than she expected from a teenage boy. "Mom, I'm not trying to push you," he said. I want you to think about it." And she could hear the sincerity in every word. He wasn't saying this to tease her or to meddle in her life. He was saying it because he cared, because he saw her pain, because he wanted her to feel the warmth she had been living without. Quiet filled the room for a moment, the rain outside softening as if the weather itself was listening. And then Noah's voice came again, low and hopeful. "Maybe you could let him in just a little." And Emma felt something inside her shift, a tiny movement, a quiet stir of emotion she hadn't felt in years. She tried to shake it off, tried to hide behind her fear again. "Liam is just your coach," she insisted. "He's not thinking about me like that." But Noah gave a small stubborn smile. "He is, Mom, trust me," he said firmly, and for the first time she felt the truth behind his words tug at her heart. Then Noah added something that made everything inside her freeze. "He asked about you," he said softly. "Not in a weird way, not like he was being nosy, just caring." And Emma's stomach tightened. She remembered the last time she saw Liam, how he looked at her with concern when she seemed tired, how he hesitated before walking away, how he seemed to want to say something but didn't. She had felt it then but shoved it away, thinking her mind was playing tricks on her. But now hearing Noah confirm it made her feel exposed, like every buried emotion had been dragged into the light. She shook her head again, trying to steady herself. "Noah, it's complicated," she murmured, but he only shrugged. "Maybe it doesn't have to be," he said, and the simplicity of those words made her chest ache with a strange mix of fear and longing, because maybe it really didn't have to be that complicated. Maybe she had been the one making everything harder by holding on to memories that no longer served her, by hiding from possibilities because she was afraid to fall again. Then Noah said the words that struck deeper than anything else. That morning, "Mom, you're still young," he murmured. "You deserve love." And Emma felt tears threaten again because hearing her child say something so mature, so heartfelt, made her feel as if she had been living behind a closed door for too long. He took a deep breath and added, "You don't have to forget what happened, but you can let something new in." And though his voice wavered slightly, she could tell he meant every syllable. Emma opened her mouth to speak, to explain that her heart wasn't ready, that she didn't even know how to start thinking about someone new. But before she could say anything, Noah continued, "If you want, I could invite him over sometime." And Emma's eyes widened, her heart lifting and dropping at the same time. "Invite him over?" she whispered, stunned, the idea so bold and unexpected she didn't know how to react. "Yes," Noah said with a small hopeful smile. "He likes talking to you, he always looks happy when you're around." And Emma felt her pulse race. "Noah, that's too much." She tried to argue, but he shook his head gently. "It's not if it makes you happy." And before she could process any of it, before she could gather her thoughts or settle her heartbeat, the sharp sound of the doorbell echoed through the house, slicing into the fragile moment like a sudden spark. Emma jolted, her breath catching, and Noah spun toward the hallway, eyes wide. They stared at each other for a long second, the air thick with something electric and uncertain, and then Noah whispered almost to himself, "Mom, I think that's him." Emma's heart pounded harder than ever, because the timing felt impossible, almost unreal, as if life had been waiting for this exact moment to push her toward something she wasn't ready for but maybe needed more than she knew. She took a slow breath, her legs feeling strangely unsteady, and though her thoughts swirled with fear, hope, confusion, and something she didn't want to name yet, she knew she had to answer that door. She walked toward the hallway, each step heavy with a mix of nerves and curiosity, her mind racing with everything Noah had told her, everything she had tried not to feel, and everything she suddenly felt all at once. And with every inch she moved closer to the door, she felt a truth rising inside her, one she hadn't acknowledged until now. She wanted to know if Noah was right. She wanted to see Liam's face. She wanted to understand why her heart was beating so fast. She wanted, without being ready for it, to see what happened next. And when she finally reached the front door, she paused, her hand hovering above the handle, her breath trembling in her chest, because she knew the moment she opened it, something in her life might change forever. Emma stood frozen for a moment with her hand resting lightly on the doorknob, her heart thumping so loudly it felt as if the whole hallway could hear it, and for a split second she thought about stepping back, pretending she didn't hear the doorbell, hiding behind the same quiet habits she had built over the past 2 years. But something inside her pushed her forward, something shaped by Noah's words, by the warmth she felt earlier, by the tiny flicker of hope that she never expected to feel again. and so she took a slow breath, steadied her shaking fingers and opened the door. The cool Oregon air slipped in first, carrying the soft smell of rain and pine, and then she saw him, Liam Turner, standing on her porch with a gentle expression that made her chest tighten. He looked slightly damp from the drizzle, his jacket sprinkled with tiny drops, and his hair pushed back casually like he had been running errands or driving with his windows cracked. But what stood out most was his smile, calm and warm, the kind of smile that didn't push or demand anything. It simply offered presence, patience, and something she didn't expect him to show so openly, concern. "Hi Emma," he said, his voice soft and sincere, carrying a small hint of nervousness like he wasn't sure if he was interrupting or welcomed, and she nodded, unable to form more than a quiet hi. In response, he lifted a small bottle in his hand, the one Noah had forgotten at practice, and said, "I thought I'd drop this off, I was driving nearby anyway." And even though it was such a simple reason, Emma felt her breath catch slightly because he didn't live close at all. She knew that, Noah knew that, and Liam knew she knew it, but he said it anyway with a gentle tone that let her choose whether she wanted to question it or simply accept it. Noah stepped behind her, trying to act casual even though his eyes sparkled with a mix of amusement and hope. "Hey coach," he said, leaning against the doorway like he had nothing to do with the anxiety swirling inside the house. Liam smiled at him, then looked back at Emma. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything," he said, and something in his voice made Emma feel strangely seen, like he could tell she had been deep in thought before he arrived, and she shook her head quickly. "Not at all," she replied, though her heart was racing faster than it had in a long time. A brief silence followed, but instead of feeling awkward, it felt full, meaningful, like everyone understood something had shifted even if no one said it out loud. Liam cleared his throat lightly, then spoke with a gentle confidence that made the moment feel even more delicate. "Actually, I came by because I wanted to ask if you two might want to join the community event tonight," he said. "Nothing fancy, just food, games, music, a lot of the families from the team will be there." And though the words were simple, something about the way he looked at her while he said it made the invitation feel personal, intentional, not just a coach asking a parent to stop by, but a man asking a woman he cared about to come share a small piece of life with him. Emma hesitated, her mind spinning too fast for her body to keep up, because she hadn't been invited to anything like this in years, not since her marriage ended, not since she pulled back from her old social circles, choosing instead to stay home, stay quiet, stay safe. She felt her throat tighten, the old instinct to say no rising automatically, the instinct that told her to avoid risks, avoid new feelings, avoid anything that might open the door to hurt again. But before she could retreat into that familiar fear, Noah nudged her gently with his elbow, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. "Say yes," she swallowed, her eyes flicking toward her son, seeing the hope there, the encouragement, the belief that she could handle this, that she deserved this. And then she looked back at Liam, who was waiting patiently without pushing, without pressure, just quietly offering a moment she didn't know she needed. "We'd love to," she finally said, her voice just a little unsteady but filled with something new, something brave. And the soft way Liam's expression warmed at her answer made her heart flutter in a way she hadn't felt since her early 20s. "I'm really glad you said that," he murmured, his tone carrying a hint of something deeper, something he wasn't ready to name but couldn't hide either. And when he stepped back, giving them space, Emma felt the air shift as if the house itself had been holding its breath. "I'll see you tonight then," he added, giving a small wave before walking back to his truck, and Emma watched him for a brief moment, noticing how his shoulders relaxed when he turned away, how he looked almost relieved, almost happy, and she couldn't help feeling a quiet warmth spread inside her chest. When the door closed behind her, she leaned against it, breathless, overwhelmed, and completely unsure what to do with the swirl of emotions inside her. Noah stood in front of her with the biggest grin she had seen on him in years. "Mom, that was perfect," he said, his voice bubbling with excitement, and she let out a shaky laugh, rubbing her hands together as if trying to hold on to something solid. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered, and Noah stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You deserve good things," he said softly, and the sincerity in his voice made her eyes sting with tears she didn't try to hide. The rest of the afternoon passed with an unfamiliar kind of energy in the house. Emma kept moving, cleaning the kitchen, straightening pillows, brushing her hair even though she wasn't going anywhere yet, because her nerves wouldn't let her sit still, and Noah watched her with a knowing smile, occasionally teasing her in a light way that made her laugh, something she hadn't done easily in a long time. She thought about Liam more than she expected, thought about the sincerity in his eyes, the gentleness in his voice, the way he didn't look at her with pity or judgment, but with genuine care, the kind of care she thought she would never feel from anyone again. As the time for the event drew closer, she found herself standing in front of her closet, unsure of what to wear. Not because she wanted to impress anyone, she told herself, but because she wanted to feel like herself again, the version of herself she had lost somewhere between heartbreak and survival. She chose a soft blue sweater and clean jeans, simple but warm, something that made her feel human again, and when she walked out, Noah gave her an approving nod. "You look really nice, Mom," he said, and she felt her cheeks warm with a shy smile. The sky had turned a deeper shade of gray by the time they left the house, rain misting lightly across the windshield as they drove toward the community field, and Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel, her nerves creeping back in steady waves, but Noah reached over and gently squeezed her arm. "You're going to be okay," he said, and she nodded, letting his reassurance ground her as she pulled into the parking lot. When they stepped out of the car, the sound of laughter, music and conversation filled the air. People gathered under white tents, strings of warm lights glowing softly through the mist, families chatting, kids running around with cotton candy, the scent of grilled food drifting through the breeze, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was stepping into a world she had been missing without realizing it. Then she saw him, standing near the game booth helping another kid toss a ball, and when Liam noticed her, his face lit up with a quiet brightness that made her heart thump hard in her chest, not in fear this time, but something much gentler, much warmer, something she thought she had lost the ability to feel. He walked toward her with steady steps, greeting her with a smile that felt like a sunrise cutting through her gray morning, and in that moment Emma realized something she never expected when she woke up that day. Her life wasn't finished. Her heart wasn't broken beyond repair. Her story wasn't over. Something new was beginning right in front of her, carried by kindness, timing, and the unexpected bravery of a son who loved her enough to push her forward. And as Liam reached her side and said her name with a softness she had forgotten existed, Emma felt her heart open. Not all the way, not fully, but just enough for hope to slip in, just enough for healing to start, just enough for a new chapter to begin, a chapter she never thought she'd get, but one she suddenly realized she was ready to step into.